Hello and welcome to the Modern Healthcare Lab podcast, bringing you conversations, ideas, and practical strategies to help you thrive in your healthcare career. To kick off today's conversation, here's your host, Diana.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Modern Healthcare Lab. Today, we are discussing the burn-in model. We have Rhiannon Crispe, an occupational therapist, international speaker, and co-creator of this model, who is someone with more than 17 years of clinical and entrepreneurial experience. Rhiannon has supported hundreds of individuals and families from diverse backgrounds. And today we are very happy to explore a bit more this model and how we can include it in our everyday life. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I want to start with the very first question is knowing your years of experience across occupational therapy, entrepreneurship, and supporting individuals and families. What experiences most shaped the way you understand occupation well-being and the people who dedicate themselves to caring for others?
Wow, that's a rich question. Look, I think, as you said, I've been an occupational therapist now for over 17 years, and I have worked in different areas. So I've worked in the hospital, I have worked in work rehabilitation, and for the majority of my OT career, I've worked with children and families. And I think the beauty of that is working in context with people in their everyday life and seeing how they live their life. And I think literally the immersion of being in context with people in doing the real life occupation has really shaped this understanding of how important occupation is to well-being. And I think the closeness and connection that I've had to that has really shaped my career and my perspective, and also how I've sort of arrived at where I am today and the work that I'm doing today. So full credit to the younger version of myself who decided to step out and start my own business and work with families in community and do things a little bit differently, because back then there weren't really mobile occupational therapists. A lot of therapists were in clinics, and that wasn't a space that felt true to me. So something that I wanted to do was really bring my work to the people in the real life context of their everyday life. So I think that's what I owe a lot of my perspective to.
Was there a particular moment when you realized we weren't simply misunderstanding burnout? We might actually be asking the wrong questions about it. And how did that realization eventually lead to the burn-in model?
Mm-hmm. So a bit of background, I suppose, if we rewind the clock a little bit, I was seeing so many OT colleagues who were describing burnout, so many occupational therapists, whether it was talking to me directly or if I was just seeing in group chats and on Facebook and the big community groups that we have, that a lot of OTs were saying, I'm burnt out, I'm exhausted, I want to quit the profession and do something that's less stressful. And I had definitely felt a sense of this myself at certain points along my career and my journey. And it became a point where I wanted to support more OTs to do work that matters. I created a movement called the OT Lifestyle Movement, where I was supporting other occupational therapists to really do what lights their inner flame, to do work that matters. I started a podcast. I created a documentary called Finding Me in OT. If you haven't watched that, I highly recommend it if you want to be re-inspired and reinvigorated by the occupational therapy profession again. And I loved this, and I found that I was touching occupational therapists from all over the world, from different walks of life, who wanted to be re-inspired again by the profession. And along the way, obviously, I noticed this theme of burnout. And I suppose a question one afternoon that I asked myself was, what's the opposite of burnout? And I wrote this Instagram reel where I spoke about burn in. And I had just had a magical day out on the water with my husband and my 2 daughters. We went whale watching and we saw some seals and turtles. And I just felt so lit up by life. You know, those moments where you just like energized and you just have this zest for life. I felt it. And I got home that evening, read another post from another occupational therapist who would prefer to go work in a supermarket. And I thought, oh my gosh, no, we can't lose these brilliant OTs. They have so much to give, but they're feeling very disconnected from the work. And I wrote this post talking about burn in that gained a lot of traction, and it got me thinking, you know, maybe there's something to this. Maybe the opposite of burnout is burn in. It's this feeling that I had that afternoon out on the water. And so I invited a group of occupational therapists to join me to start developing and co-creating this new model that we call the burn-in model. And from there, that's where it really took off. Had OTs from all around the world collaborate on this. I then went off with Michelle Lucan, who co-created and developed the model with me. And it's really a life model. It's a model, if we think about models and frameworks that we have that are well known by the everyday person, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs or Ikigai, the Japanese model for living well, this is another model that I see like that. You know, it's not a model that is to be kept and siloed within occupational therapy. It is a model that any person can use without prior knowledge of occupational therapy. It's about life. It's about alignment. It's about doing things that matter. And so we created this through the lens of occupational therapy and our occupational theory, but also informed by life and doing a deep dive into the research on burnout. And essentially, the model looks like a metaphor of a flame. So if you can imagine, think of your life like a fire. And when this fire is burning big and bright, that's burn in. You know, you've got we use these analogies like I'm lit up, or there's a fire in my belly, or, you know, there's a spark in me. So when we have that fire inside of us, that feeling, that is feeling energized, aligned, and whole within yourself. And when the flame starts to dim, so it's on a continuum, when the flame starts to dim and it starts to burn out, obviously that's the burning out process. This is where we feel drained, we're fatigued, we're tired, and we're feeling like we can't sustain living the way that we've been living. And burnout in the burn-in model is represented as coal. So we've got this visual imagery to help explain how we're feeling. And so quite simply, burn-in is the opposite of burnout, and it is the alignment between 3 things, between who we are, what we do, and who and what we're connected to. So it really draws on a lot of those OT principles. And it's just a really practical way for people to check in and have a look at their alignment. And it gives us a language to use, like, how's your flame burning today? We can use it on the visual analog scale. Is it a 5, burning big and bright and blazing, like we're burning in? Or if we go down the scale towards coal, where it's a 1, are we burning out? Are we fatigued, disconnected, exhausted, cynical about what we're doing? And so, yeah, it's just a beautiful way to describe how someone might be feeling if they're burnt out, and a beautiful model to support people, not only those who are burning out, but anyone who wants to feel lit up by life again.
It's very beautiful and very insightful explanation. And I just love how the inspiration came when it was a very beautiful moment for you. So it really, the model uh, came from a very burning in moment. That's very beautiful. Before going to some more details in the model, I'm curious, was there something that you personally had to unlearn about success, productivity, responsibility, or what it means to be a good professional before developing this model?
Interesting. What first came to mind was actually something that I had to unlearn after developing the model and learning more about burnout. I didn't think if you were passionate about the work that you did, that you would be at risk of burnout. I thought it was the people who sort of went to work and really bored and uninspired and essentially misaligned were the people that would burn out. You know, the people that had to go to work to pay the bills, the people that had to go to work to do the things that they wanted to do, but they didn't enjoy going to work. But research shows that people who are passionate about their work are the people that burn out. So if you're passionate, you're more likely to stay back and do a few more extra jobs that your boss has asked. You're more likely to answer emails after hours. You're more likely to say yes to things when you really know in your body you want to say no, but you say yes because you're committed to your work. You love what you do. And so all these things compound and they lead to burnout. And so if you are someone who loves what you do and you're passionate about your work, you're at risk of burnout for exactly those reasons. And that's something that I had to unlearn because I look at my own life and I think sometimes I can fall into that burnout trap quite quickly because I have so many things on the go, so many projects, so many areas of passion and interest. And that overload can be too much and I can find myself burning out. And so I had to realize sometimes we have to take things off our plate and not do as much rather than just add things to our schedule that are quote unquote health promoting, you know, because the narrative is that we need meditation apps, we need the bubble bath, we need breath work strategies, we need all these extra things that we need to do to fill our calendar to quote unquote recover from burnout or prevent burnout. But essentially, we need to look at how we're living our life, not just add things to our plate. Sometimes we need to take things off our plate.
And you describe burning as alignment between who we are, what we do, and who and what we're connected to. So can you unpack these three dimensions for us? What happens if one of them starts to fall out of alignment?
Mm-hmm. So when we talk about the flame, if we're to zoom in on the flame, which is the heart of the burn-in model, there's three interconnecting elements, which you mentioned. There is, and the broader concepts for them are being, doing, and belonging. Being is who you are, doing is what you do, and belonging is who and what you're connected to. And when there is alignment between those three things, so we are being our true self, we are doing the things we love, and we're connected to people and places that make us feel like ourselves and make us feel like we belong, then there is alignment and there is more potential for our inner flame to grow big and bright and to burn in. And, you know, that's when we burn in, when there is that sense of alignment. And when one of those factors falls out of alignment, so say, for example, we're not doing the things that we love, or we're doing too much and our plate is too full, or let's say, for example, the being part falls out of alignment. Maybe we are not showing up as our true self we are masking our true identity. Or if the belonging part falls out of alignment, that could look like we're surrounded by people who are toxic. We're surrounded by people that we just do not get along with. And that causes misalignment. It causes a misalignment. And the more misalignment we have, or the more mismatches we have between who we are, what we do, and who and what we're connected to, the more potential there is for burnout, and the more potential there is for our flame to decrease and dim. So it is really important to have a look at those three things: our being, our doing, and our belonging, and look at our sense of alignment, because that is very telling. And we know that the more awareness that we have around this, and we can get this awareness through drawing it out, through talking about this. You know, if you're using the model on yourself, you can use it as a reflective activity. If you're using it with someone you're coaching or a client that you're working with, they can draw it and map it out, or you can literally have a conversation around it, and work out what's going on here. Am I aligned in who I am, in what I'm doing, and in what I'm connected to? Or is there a total misalignment here? Am I not showing up as myself? Am I not doing the things that I love with the people and in the places that I enjoy doing them? So it's a great check-in. It's a great way to reflect on where we're at.
I would love your opinion on the term burnout, which has become a part of everyday healthcare language. So we know the term, we very often mention it, but has naming burnout helped us understand clinicians' experiences, or has this conversation sometimes just been too focused in the symptoms and rather than what is underneath them? So we're talking about burnout as a term, we're mentioning it, we're naming, but what else?
I think naming burnout is very important. I think it names and validates a very real human experience. I think the challenge is that there really isn't any health professional that is really trained in burnout. So if we look across the board, from doctors to therapists to different health professionals, no one receives a good amount of training in burnout. And I think this is problematic. Another thing that's problematic is that at the moment, it's labeled and described as an occupational phenomenon. So it's not a mental health condition. It's an occupational phenomenon, meaning that it is something that happens at work. It's tied to your work, and stress that hasn't been successfully managed in the workplace. So that means that doctors aren't upskilled on burnout. So if you go to your doctor and you say all the symptoms, so I'm exhausted, I'm overworked, I'm always negative about my job, or I'm always negative about things I have to do, I feel like I'm not accomplishing anything, so this reduced sense of professional efficacy, burnout can be viewed or misinterpreted as another diagnosis. And so I think it's important that there's a lot more upskilling that we do around burnout. And I think that is what can really help us. If we start learning more about burnout, if there's more teaching and training around burnout, and if more people are aware. I think burnout is used as a very common phrase, like, oh, I'm burnt out.
Mm.
People say it very generally, but they don't realize that maybe there is actually some guidelines around what it actually is. Like, it's a real thing. It's not just a feeling. It's real.
And what are some of the subtle signs that someone is moving away from alignment before they reach the burnout?
So in the burn-in model, we call these smoke signals. So if you imagine your fire, the smoke signals that come up, that is a sign. It's like your SOS that you send out for help, right? Something's not right. And you're hoping someone sees the smoke to come and help you. And the smoke signals that we often send up when we're feeling burnt out or as we're burning out is irritability, withdrawal from activities and the things that we usually love, difficulty concentrating. So a lot of people have foggy brain and they can't think straight. They might read through an email and they read through it and they have to read through it 3 or 4 times to actually understand what they're reading. They might walk into a room and you forget what you're doing. Sleep can change. You feel mentally, physically, emotionally exhausted a lot of the time. People will have tension and headaches. There's a lot of physical, cognitive, social, emotional presentations that people have that are the smoke signals. They're the warning signs that someone's heading towards burnout before they fully crash, before that flame does turn into coal.
It attracts people who are deeply compassionate, responsible, passionate about helping others. You mentioned previously that before developing the model, you have seen many therapists who were doing great jobs reaching the burnout point in their work. When do the qualities that make someone exceptional clinicians like these, being compassionate, responsible, passionate about helping others, when do these qualities begin to work against professionals?
This is a great question, Diana. I love these. They're very thoughtful questions you have, because a lot of the traits that make people susceptible to burnout are also the traits that can be so positive, right? So people who are more likely to burn out are the people who are caring. They're the perfectionists. They're the ones who want to get things done and they want to do their work really, really well. They're the people who take on a lot of responsibility. They're the empaths, the people, again, that care so deeply about the work that they do and the clients and the patients that they work with. The people that burn out are usually more sensitive. So they have that softer side to them. And so the problem becomes like, these are very positive things, right? Normally you'd say someone who's caring, someone who's a perfectionist or who does things really well, who takes on responsibility, like they're the kind of people you want to employ, right? You're amazing, great, we need you in healthcare. Yet they are the most likely group of people to burn out because of those beautiful qualities. So we need to protect them. Essentially, it comes back to setting boundaries. Can we set some boundaries so that we can protect who we are and we can stay in alignment with what we do in the workplace that we're in? So yeah, I think it's just important for healthcare providers to realize that those traits, they are beautiful and you're amazing to have those wonderful qualities, but they are also qualities that put you at risk of burnout because you want to do so well, because you care so much, because you can't switch off on the car on the way home because you're thinking about the client that you worked with and all the other things that you could have done or the report that you could have written better. It's hard to switch the brain off. And so that's what can lead to burnout. And so, yeah, we need to put really good boundaries in our life to ensure that we do stop work at a certain time, that we don't take work home, whatever it is that, you know, a person needs, identifying that. And again, that's something that can be drawn up in the burn-in model. In the model, the rocks around a fire, if you can imagine a fireplace, we have a whole ecosystem around it. And the rocks around the fire, they are boundaries, right? They look like, something that protects the fire. And that's what boundaries are. So we can label each rock and the boundaries that we need to put around our fire. And this is going to protect it from like a big gust of wind. The wind is something, it can be supportive or unsupportive, but it can blow out the flame essentially. So if you're in a workplace that takes advantage of these positive qualities that you have, because you're happy to stay back late, you're happy to go the extra mile, all of that, then that can blow out your flame. It can be the big thunderstorm that rains on your flame and puts it out. And so when we look at environment in the burn-in model, the environment, which are like the rain clouds and the wind, they can put out your flame quite easily. And so we need to protect that with our boundaries.
Something very interesting for healthcare professionals. So we are taught early when we are doing our OT trainings that occupational therapy comes with ethical responsibilities, professional boundaries, standards of conduct. But beyond this, we are still whole human beings with passions and identities outside this profession. So how do we hold both? For example, an occupational therapist who is also a dancer, an artist, a musician, entrepreneur, or in these days, also the influencing role or content creator. So, how can someone pursue those meaningful occupations and express different parts of their own identity while still maintaining the professionalism and the appropriate professional boundaries?
Think both can certainly coexist. You can be an occupational therapist and a bodybuilder and a surfer and a dancer and a pole dancer. I don't care what you do outside. You can express who you are alongside your work as an OT. And I think that's the beauty. And I think out of any profession, we should get that people engage in a whole variety of different occupations based on their identity, based on their culture, based on what is important to them. And so for sure, like we can totally have this coexisting nature between our professionalism and, like you said, being a whole human, doing things outside of that. I don't think it's an either or, it's a both and.
Additional identities and occupations actually protect against burnout by giving someone meaning beyond their clinical role? Or is there the chance to also become another space for overwork or performance and pressure? So, how can we know that something is more fueling versus becoming another application?
This is such an individual question, right? So this is something, if I was working with something, this is something I would reflect back to the person that I'm working with. Absolutely, we need to engage in meaningful activities. We need to be connected to people in our lives that bring meaning to us. And we can still do our work. And I don't think we can, what am I trying to say here? We can have meaningful activities and work, and we can also have so much on our plate and be doing so much that it becomes overload, too much, can't do it all, need to take some things off our schedule and create more white space. And it's so individual. So it's not an equation, or there's no blueprint, there's no guide, there's no how-to 5 steps process. It is so tailored to the person that we're working with and working out what works for them and what works for their life. What kind of lifestyle do they want to live? How fast-paced do they want to live? How slow, do they want to live in the slow lane? And so I think it's really listening to the narrative of the person that we're working with, finding out what's meaningful to them, finding out what their capacity is, what their ability, tolerance, needs are, and working that out with them. Like we cannot prescribe occupation, right? As OTs, we do not prescribe occupation. We do not give occupational prescriptions. I don't even like to give recommendations. I like to develop a co-creation. I like to be in collaboration. I like to be the companion with someone. And so that looks like working with them, letting them lead, providing my expertise, but ultimately letting them decide what's going to work for them, because I am not the expert of their life. So that's what I'd say.
And why do healthcare professionals often continue giving long after they recognize they're running empty? So maybe this is a general, it's the same way, the same pathway, but especially for healthcares and for people who actually learn and are trained to work on this. So has healthcare unintentionally created a culture where self-sacrifice is sometimes mistaken for commitment?
Big question. Can you read the last part again? Can you say the last part again?
Yes. So has healthcare unintentionally created a culture where self-sacrifice is sometimes mistaken for commitment or maybe professionalism? So is this maybe something that is pushing, especially healthcare professionals, to overdo and then keep them giving even after they recognize they're running on empty?
Mm. Yeah, it's the irony of it all, isn't it? Because we are in the healthcare profession, yet healthcare professions are the professionals that are burning out almost nearly more than anyone else. So it's something we need to look at and take a check. And employers and workplaces actually need to dive into this and protect the people that are working with them and for them, protect them from burnout. I mean, it's not hard. We have so many workplace regulations around physical health and safety, yet I feel like the mental health side, and particularly burnout, is really underrepresented. And so this is space for us to do work, even as OTs, work in the space of burnout. I would love to connect with other therapists who are in this space. Please reach out to me. If you're in academia or if you're working in the burnout space, let me know, because I think we need more of us in this space, because every voice matters. And if you look around the world, I feel like nearly everyone's burning out. Everyone is at their wits' end. Everyone is fraying at the edges, coming home exhausted, counting down till Feel Good Friday. They get the Sunday scaries because the next day they have to go to work. And then it's Groundhog Day every single day. No one wants to do it. So it's not just healthcare, but I think the irony of it is that, here we are trying to promote health and well-being, yet we're burning out. So it's something we need to take a reality check on and realize we have some autonomy in this space. We can make choices, and we need workplaces on board, because, as I said, in the burn-in model, they can be the rain and the thunderstorm raining down on someone's individual flame, like too many demands, too many tasks, not enough supervision, no mentoring, no support, too critical, etc., etc. And this rain is dampening and dimming someone's inner flame. And so those workers, those people that have the dim flame, they don't want to show up every day. They don't want to come to a workplace where they're always getting criticized, where they feel like they're not getting any recognition for the work that they do, where they feel like their values don't align with the workplace values. So it's definitely something that we need to look at, and needs to be viewed from an individual perspective and also a organizational perspective.
Missing when we place too much responsibility on the individual, and where do leadership, organizational culture, workload, and the healthcare system fit within the burn-in model? Is it the rain? Is it something else within the system?
Yeah. So the organization or the workplace. So if we look at the burn-in model and a person is using it for themselves, the rain and the wind, that represents the environment. And that can so for example, the wind can fuel a fire. You know, if you get a subtle breeze, that oxygen is the flame is gonna burn bigger and brighter. So you might have a really supportive workplace. You might have people in your team that cheer you on and have got your back. And that's that gentle breeze that's going to fuel your fire. You might also have a workplace that dampens your fire. That's the thunderstorm of life, right? Raining down, putting out your flame. And so, yeah, the model can be used from an individual perspective, as in an individual draws out, maps out their flame, looks at what's impacting it and what they can do about it. And it can also be used at an organizational level, where the supervisor supports an individual by mapping out their inner flame and talking through how they can support the individual. It can be used at the higher up level, where the leaders get together and map out what's going on in the organization, and you can draw a collective flame and see if everyone's aligned. So there's lots of ways that you can use it. One of the elements that we haven't spoken about yet is the logs and the sticks, right? Every fire has some sort of fuel. Typically it's logs and sticks. And these represent our meaningful occupations. So the meaningful activities that we do. These activities can fuel our fire. So if we put a big log on, what meaningful activities do you do, Diana? What are yours?
So I think I really changed during my years. I used to very much love just reading, being quiet. There was a period in life where I really loved dancing, and
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting. I don't remember where or when I dropped off. So just recently, this last year, I was thinking about how much I love dancing and how did I forget
Mm,
about it. And it used to be something that I really loved. And then I switched to maybe doing some more hikings, and this is where I'm at. But also, when I was thinking about our conversation today and about the burn-in model, I was also reflecting on this. We sometimes just drop the things that we loved most, and it's not that we don't want to do them again. It's just like we get disconnected from them. So this is what I do. I read, I write. This is the same thing that I'm still doing since I was younger, but I dropped dancing, and maybe I need the burn-in model to reconnect me to that.
yeah, I love that. And so dancing might be that big log that's sitting on the side, right? It's not in the fire at the moment. And maybe if you threw it on the fire, that inner flame might burn bigger and brighter. You might feel more aligned. Um, and interestingly, what seems to happen is when someone is burning out, unfortunately, it's usually those big logs, like the things that are really meaningful to us, that get taken off. It might be your morning run or your weekend yoga or catching up with your friends once a week. Those big logs tend to come off because it's like, oh, I don't have the time. I'm too stressed. I couldn't fit it in anymore. But we keep the little twigs that in the fire might be, you know, a scroll on social media or a quick coffee or a glass of alcohol, like something that's just that quick dopamine hit. And that fuels the fire, but it doesn't fuel it for very long, right? We need the big sticks, like the dancing, the things that those meaningful occupations, and I'm talking to all the occupational therapists here, the meaningful occupations that really fuel our fire and that keep it sustainable and that keep it burning. Because essentially, if we just have the little twigs and the little dopamine hits, it's not sustainable. It's going to burn out. So when we're burning out, we need to look at ways that we can add a log or two, a meaningful occupation back onto the fire. Yeah. So maybe that might be something, to look at. And I think it's a juggle, it's a balance. If you've got a lot of meaningful things you do, like you mentioned, hiking and reading, and or you've got podcasting, and there's so many, you're multi-passionate like me, and it's hard. I get it. So it is that balance that we talked about before between the meaningful occupations and doing those, and also not overdoing it, so our schedule becomes too full.
And I was also thinking maybe it's different stages in life where you just get different ways to get your energy back, or it's just something. But it's always very different when you go back to this one thing that you left on the side. So it makes you feel another version of being your true self.
I love that. Soundbite that bit.
And now it makes me think if we want to create a human-centered healthcare workplace, or just a workplace in general, but that has humans on the center, and it where that place would be something that is not pushing people towards burnout, but actually giving the conditions to grow, contribute, and to flourish. How do you think that would be? What's maybe a key element that it should have?
Dr. Christina Maslach is a psychologist who has been leading the research in burnout for many years now. And she lists a few things, but one of them is meaningful autonomy. So having autonomy in your work and not being micromanaged all the time. Another one is being recognized. So having that recognition of the things that you do well, and the contributions that you make. I think having meaningful relationships in your workplace is very important. So having this feeling that the people that you work with support you and see you for who you are, and you feel safe to be yourself. I think the underlying theme is that people feel psychologically safe to be themselves, that they feel psychologically safe to be human, and to show up in all their authenticity. And I think that's really important.
One who is listening and who thinks, I know something isn't right, but I don't know what needs to change. How can they use the burn-in concept to begin identifying where the misalignment is in their own life?
First, I'd recommend just starting with the scale, the flame scale. So that picture, that visual from 1 to 5, and identifying where your flame is right now. Is it 1 where it's cold and you're burnt out? Or is it, as we go up the scale, is it growing and your flame increases in size to a number 5 where it's burning bright and you're burning in? If I ask you, Diana, at the moment, intuitively, what's your answer? Where are you on a scale of 1 to 5? Where 1 is burnt out and 5 is burning in?
I'm in the middle right now because I'm doing some things, and then I'm getting in touch with these old skills or hobbies that I did. And I'm very much concentrating in doing the work-life balance. But still, even though there's not something that is burning me out from the outside, I'm still not in uh, burning in fully. Like I knew I can, or I was just imagining the moment that you said when you were walking um, right in the beach, and you realize that you have a flame and you have something that motivates you. So I do know I've had those days. I did have some skills, some activities, some hobbies that brought that fire in me. So this is why I'm saying I'm mid there.
Great segue into the fact that we're not burning in all of the time. It's a transient state. So sometimes we'll be burning in and then life happens and we could be on the way to burnout, right? So our goal isn't to say that we should be burning in all of the time. That's just not realistic. That's not life. But what the model does is bring awareness to where we're at, right? And to work out if we want to take more steps towards that feeling of burning in. Once you've identified on the scale 1 to 5 where you're at, then you can map out the model. You draw your flame, you can draw the rocks around your flame, like how many boundaries you have. Maybe you work out you've got no rocks protecting your flame. You've got 0 boundaries in your life. You say yes to everything. You'll volunteer for your kids' school at the drop of a hat. Whatever it is, like you've just got 0 boundaries in your life. And maybe you go, I need some rocks around my flame. I need some boundaries in my life. Or maybe you realize, like you said, that dancing log, the meaningful occupations aren't in your fire. It's sitting off to the side. Maybe we need to put that on the fire to fuel the fire once more. Maybe you realize you got this big thunderstorm hanging over your fire that's dampening it and putting it out. And maybe that's a relationship in your life. Maybe that is your workplace and the demands, whatever it is. Like, it brings to life and brings awareness to how our life is at any point in time. And we can always come back to it and reflect on that and decide what we're going to change moving forward so that our life can change.
Alignment require finding the perfect career, or is it something that we continually renegotiate through different seasons of life?
That's a great question. I don't think there is such thing as the perfect career or the perfect relationship or the perfect anything. And I think it's all about perspective. So I think, again, it comes back to the individual and what that feeling of alignment feels like for them. And I think initially it's a gut feeling. Like, we know in our gut if things don't feel right, if things feel off balance, if things feel off center, and that's worth listening to.
And how do you hope our understanding of professional well-being evolves alongside those changes? And could technology help burn in or create entirely new forms of misalignment?
I hope burn-in becomes a household name. I hope this idea that burn-in not out becomes a catch cry that people use, and it itself can become a reminder of what it feels like when someone is living in alignment.
We will have many people listening to this podcast, and especially healthcare professionals. For the ones who feel exhausted, disconnected, or maybe unsure whether they can continue or not, what would you want them to hear?
Like I said, I think listen to your gut, listen to your intuition. That is so telling. I'd suggest drawing out your own burn-in model, having a look at that, and maybe someone can facilitate that for you, or maybe you can just do that for yourself and reflection. And look internally, look at what's going on for you. Do you have smoke signals? Are your smoke signals exhaustion, irritability? Are you snappy at the kids? Are you always frustrated? Are you anxious, on edge? Like, look at your own smoke signals, and are you heading towards burnout? And if so, you can get support and you can make change, realize that you have a certain amount of autonomy and control and choice in your life, and ask, how can I fuel my flame? How can I protect my flame? And what needs to change? And make the change. You do not need to stay where you are. And that's always easier said than done. But look at things that you can do that are within your influence and within your control. And also recognize the things that aren't. So if it's not within your control and you can't do anything about it, That's great. We can leave that there. But what can you do and what is within your control and work with that?
And if you could give every healthcare professional listening one practical burn-in tool, they could start using it today to reconnect with what gives them energy, meaning, or alignment, what would it be?
Well, my motto has become burn in, not out. And I'd just ask you to repeat that to yourself, like burn in, not out. Make it become your little mantra. And it can mean whatever you want it to mean. But for me, when I say it, it's just this check-in of alignment. Am I doing something that's aligned? Is it aligned? And if not, can I change it? And if I have to do it, are there different ways of doing it or better ways of doing it where it does feel more aligned? So burn in, not out.
Have one word that describes burn-in to you, what it means to you. What could that be?
Alignment.
And what is one thing every healthcare professional should protect?
Their flame.
And if you have one thing that you wish every healthcare professional would stop feeling guilty about, what is that thing?
It would be having a life outside of healthcare. You can have a life outside of the work that you do. Do not feel like you need to be tethered only to your career. And it's actually important for your mental health to be engaged in meaningful occupations outside of your work. So do more of that.
That's very beautiful. And I think, based on my perspective as well, this is where most of us lose it. This is where we get disconnected, living by the role, the identity of the profession, and forgetting we are humans underneath that. And I have
Absolutely.
this one last question for you. If you could finish the sentence, you burn in when you, what is the rest?
Burn in when your being, your doing, and your belonging align. And when there's enough alignment between those, there's potential for becoming. And it's that becoming of your future self and who you're authentically here to be.
That's very beautiful. Thank you so much. This conversation was beyond just uh, talking about the model. It was exploring occupations, identities, passions, and professional responsibilities. It was very insightful. I very much enjoyed it and learning more for the model and your thoughts and perspectives coming from an occupational therapist. And perhaps well-being isn't about becoming less about everything. It's about learning how to remain connected to what gives us energy without losing uh, ourselves there. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, for giving us this insightful conversation in the Modern Healthcare Lab, and for inviting us to think differently about what it means to burn in and not out.
Thank you so much, Diana. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I'm active on Instagram. So if anyone wants to connect with me over there, feel free. I also have LinkedIn. It's Rhiannon Crispe on both, at Rhiannon Crispe on Instagram, Rhiannon Crispe on LinkedIn. I'm on TikTok too. I've only recently joined that. I don't know if you're on there, but it's a new age thing that I'm testing out. I feel a bit old, but here we are.
Thank you so much. I think TikTok is the only channel that I still didn't discover you there. So I'm gonna go there.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode. We hope you feel more ready, set, and connected. For more, visit ReadySetConnect.com.